Hello Guardians, and welcome back to the channel. With the final act of Echoes now out of the way, and all of the secret parts released for the newest exotic mission, it's time for a new build. This build is going to focus on the amazing synergy between the exotic auto rifle Choir of 1 and the versatility of Prismatic. If you've been playing for a while, you may recognize some aspects of this build as they come from a very old Astrocross build. However, we're going to take things to a brand new level through Prismatic, which is truly going to give us that super soldier feel that Titans deserve. Titans should be the aggressive, hard-hitting, tanky class, but also have the ability to provide support when needed. Enough rambling, let's get into the build. Okay, up first, let's go over the subclass and the super. Like I said, we're going into Prismatic, because of its versatility and the ability to tap into multiple different elements. But staying true to the Winter Soldier name, we're going to go with Behemoth as our super. Now, Behemoth is a fantastic ad-clearing super, and if you want to be the ad-clear guy in your fire team, great, be that guy. But if you want one for more of a one-off super, or you want something that's more focused on a single target DPS, go with Twilight Arsenal. Twilight Arsenal, after its most recent buff, is now one of the best one-off supers Titans have. This week's TWID even mentions that in Revenant, the axe tracking is getting tuned to be more accurate and hit targets within your reticle. And the axe relic damage is getting increased by 23%, which currently, those were my only complaints with this super, so I'm just gonna sit back and let Bungie cook. Now, I wanted to keep the idea of the super soldier throughout the build, and that meant staying very agile and being able to get in and out of cover or damage very quickly. Being a hunter main, we can just dodge, and then we're safe. And I found that the animation for the barricade was just too slow and ruined the flow of play. But thrusters was the perfect mix between a hunter dodge and exactly what I was looking for. Now, skipping to the grenade, I chose to go with the Glacial Grenade. I chose to go with this one specifically for its ability to be used offensively and defensively. You can toss this at a group of enemies or at a champion and you can just freeze everything in place. Then you follow up with a secondary attack, or you can throw this in front of, say, a downed ally and it can act as a shield from enemy fire, allowing you time to secure the res. This leads me right into the first aspect, Unbreakable. Holding your grenade will summon a void shield and block a portion of incoming damage, gradually draining your grenade and granting an overshield over time. Releasing the grenade or running out of energy releases a frontal blast from your shield that deals increased damage based on how much damage was blocked. Now, I've talked in previous build videos on how I love the idea of a rescue shield that can be mobile and used in situations where you are securing a res or trying to block enemy fire while your team is on the move trying to secure another safe location. Now, believe it or not, I had a whole section of this video talking about how Bungie needed to buff this aspect and other parts of the Titan kit to return them to those frontliners, the damage mitigators, and the battlefield commanders that they once were. And you know what? This week's TWID came out and they talk about exactly that. In Revenant, Titans are getting some much needed love to the Prismatic kit along with a bunch of other global ability buffs. One of those things is the Unbreakable aspect. Titans will now gain Taunt while behind barricades and the Unbreakable shields. This basically means you're going to pull aggro away from your allies, and the enemy's going to focus on you and your shield. Bungie's finally leaning into the aspects of a true MMO, those role-based abilities. Unbreakable is also receiving a bunch of changes. It will now generate grenade energy based off the amount of damage blocked, and the duration you can hold a shield for is getting increased. The other thing that's going to see a huge buff is Void Overshields. Damage resistance in PvE is getting increased from 50 to 70%, and the maximum of effective HP will be increased from 90 to 150. Speaking of busted aspects, our next one is going to be Knockout. Critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee attacks with arc energy and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. Defeating targets with melee attacks makes you amplified and restores a portion of your health. Defeating more powerful combatants increases the amount of health restored. Along with the other changes that were mentioned in the TWID today, Knockout will be having a previous nerf reverted, which will now make it so that melee kills will now cancel health and shield stun, so you're basically just going to be able to start regenerating health immediately on a melee kill, versus kind of what happens now where your health and your shield regen kind of just pause briefly if you're still taking damage. That'll just go away and you'll immediately start to regen everything. I was originally under the impression that knockout only worked on punching melees or physical melees. This is not the case at all. We are trying to summon the power of Captain America, and at the same time run and gun like the Winter Soldier. And to do that, we need the shield. The shield throw melee can ricochet off targets and surfaces, granting an overshield for each target hit. And when combined with our aspects, will become infused with arc energy as well. Meaning not only are you granting an overshield on every hit, if the target is defeated, you're getting health back, and you're becoming amplified, which is going to increase our mobility by 50%, our slide distance by 33%, and our weapon handling by 40%. You're even going to gain a small amount of damage resistance on top of all of that, just by throwing a shield. Now, without that shield, you're not going to be the classic Captain America or Winter Soldier. And normally, you only get one charge. You toss that shield and it's gone. But with the exotic arms Second Chance and the exotic perk Myrmidon's Reach, you're going to gain an additional shield charge. Your shields are now going to weaken targets, and they're going to become shield piercing. When you break a barrier shield, you will even get that melee refunded to you as well. So we're now equipped with cybernetic arms, just like the Winter Soldier, and you're built for destruction, giving you multiple shields and multiple different ways to cause mayhem on the battlefield. But we haven't even gotten to the fragments yet. Facet of Grace. Defeating targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus transcendence energy. Defeating targets with your super grants you and nearby allies bonus transcendence energy. This fragment is absolutely slept on. I'll get into our weapon loadout in a minute, but just by using a kinetic weapon, you're able to fill both the dark and light bars at the same time. With how powerful the electrified snare can be, this is a huge play in any prismatic build. Facet of Dawn. Powered melee hits against targets makes you radiant. And what is our shield doing but hitting and ricocheting off targets? Every hit you get with that shield is going to proc a 10-second timer. During that 10-second timer, you're going to have 25% increased weapon damage. Let's say you're in a DPS phase, you open with a shield throw, you blow your load for 10 seconds, and then you throw the shield again to restart that timer. Facet of Courage. Your Arc, Solar, and Void abilities deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. Anything you freeze with your Glacial Grenade is going to take increased damage from your shield melee. So now let's pair that with Facet of Ruin, which is going to increase the size and damage of the burst when you shatter a stasis crystal or frozen target. You throw your grenade, you freeze an enemy, or a group of enemies. You throw the shield, which is doing more damage because Facet of Courage. When the enemy dies, they're going to shatter, which will also shatter all the remaining stasis crystals, which explode and do a huge amount of AoE damage. This can easily clear a room or a large group of red bars. Lastly, we have Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. Purpose plays a massive part in endgame survivability. Depending on which super you decide to go with, you're either stacking Frost Armor, which at times 5 is 22.5% damage reduction, or you're gaining Overshields every time you pick up an orb. Either one, absolutely fantastic choice. Okay, that is the main ability and subclass loop. But the artifact mods that came out with Act 3 are pretty spicy when it comes to auto rifles. Now I know that these are going to be changing in a few weeks, but even without these mods, this build still slaps. So for primaries, I wanted to go with something kinetic, but also I wanted to tap into the new artifact mods. And because we're creating the Winter Soldier, the most obvious choice was Kvostov. But the legendary version. Why, you ask? Because the 7GO2 version of the weapon has 5 perks that can all become enhanced. And the combo I've been using is Enhanced Pugilist and Enhanced Attrition Orbs. Pugilist is going to give us 10% melee energy on every kill, so we can have more shield throws. And Attrition Orbs drops more powerful Orbs of Power, with sustained damage. And with an auto rifle, Sustained damage is basically its whole thing. That's all they do. As for our exotic weapon, Choir of One. Now, I'm not going to go into a deep dive on this weapon. There's a bunch of weapon breakdowns out already because the weapon's been out for a couple weeks now, so I'm a little late to the game. But the roll that I've been using is Arrowhead Break, Flared Magwell, Destabilizing Rounds, and Composite Stock. Short and sweet, slightly more range and stability with a little bit of reload sprinkled in there. But the main reason that I went with Destabilizing Rounds over Onslaught is the fact that in this build, this weapon is your quick damage burst weapon. Example being, you're up against a champion, you have it stunned with one of your abilities, Transcendent Grenade, Melee, Shatter, etc, etc. Then you can just switch to Choir and dump the hipfire shots and delete anything extremely quickly, especially if they've already been weakened by one of those shields. I didn't feel the need to increase the rate of fire with Onslaught at all. I found that conserving my ammo and just popping off a few shots at range or hip-firing at closer targets was good enough. You can start that volatile loop easily enough, and you save on ammo at the same time. The reserves for this weapon are getting nerfed when Revenant drops, so saving ammo for when it's really needed felt more appropriate for this build. As for your heavy weapon, this slot is flexible, so you can use whatever the type of content you're running calls for. Now, artifact mods. Let's go over all of them, because there's a lot. Winning Hand. While using a weapon with Dealer's Choice, you'll now have basically baked-in Firefly, which is pretty cool, and Kvostov, the legendary version of Kvostov, has Dealer's Choice on it. Elemental Siphon will grant you either Stasis Shards or Void Breaches after rapid final blows with kinetic weapons. Void Hegemony will give you an additional source for a Void Overshield when defeating weakened targets. So you'll be getting a bonus Overshield on every shield throw while you're using the Second Chance arms. Galvanic Armor is giving you an additional 30% damage reduction while you're amplified. Expanding Abyss is going to increase the damage of Void sources to weakened targets. So after you've hit a target with your shield, Choir of One is going to absolutely annihilate anything you come up against. Shield Crush is increasing our melee regen while we have an overshield, and it's increasing our grenade regen while we're amplified. Lastly, our Sustained Fire and Targeting Autoloader. Sustained Fire is granting you a 40% damage reduction while at ×3, which is going to stack on top of your 30% damage reduction from being amplified. And Autoloader is exactly like it sounds. You slay out and you get more ammo automatically reloaded into your auto rifles. Armor mods are focused on melee uptime so that we can have that shield throw ready to go. Void or Harmonic Siphon mods on your helmet, as well as a special ammo and heavy ammo finder. Double or triple stacking heavy-handed, if you can run it, on those arms will make sure that every kill your shield gets is going to have an increased chance to drop an orb. I did add in a Void Reserve mod on my chest piece, which should help keep Choir of One's ammo reserves slightly higher even after that nerf coming next month. One Recuperation mod, one Innervation mod, and a Void Holster mod on the boots for ability uptime, and just some help with reloading Choir of One while it's stowed. Then, 2 Bomber mods and 2 Finisher mod on your class item. The Finisher mod isn't absolutely necessary, but it could be used in a pinch if you ever run out of those shield throws and you need something immediately. This build will literally turn you into Bucky Barnes, including the enhanced strength, speed, agility, and some wild exotic arms that grant you buffed shield throws. Paired with a select group of weapons, you're going to become the deadly assassin that the Winter Soldier truly is. If I missed anything, guys, or if you have any suggestions on how to make the build even more potent, let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more content like this one, do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button, as well as the bell next to it to stay up to date with all of my latest content. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming and watching, but that's all for me for now. Wolf, out!